Hey guys, Mr. Yaisley here. So we are on to lesson number 16 in chapter 4, all about writing linear functions. And in lesson number 16, we're going to talk specifically about scatter plots. And no doubt you've seen scatter plots to this point in your academic career, both probably in the math realm and in the science realm, because charts like these are very common in science textbooks and in work there. You may have also seen these even in history textbooks or different things that are going to be using data to determine outcomes or to explain things that took place. And so with scatter plots, we're just going to go through one example, but it's a very extended example here that we're going to go through. And so when you've got scatter plots, it's typically graphed in a quadrant 1 graph. So if you look at your graph, you've got all positive numbers moving on what would be considered the x-axis, all positive numbers moving on what would be considered the y-axis. Now you may also have noticed that each one of those axes is labeled. So like our y-axis here stands for the calories in this problem. Whereas our x-axis here, it stands for the sugar in terms of grams. So how much sugar's in these smoothies. And then you've got the smoothies themselves, which is the topic that's going on that we're talking about. We're talking about smoothies, we're talking about the amount of calories they have, and we're talking about the number of sugar grams that are in them. And then you've got these dots that represent points on the graph or represent a smoothie itself. And each smoothie is going to have a certain amount of calories as well as a certain amount of grams of sugar in it. Now, one other thing I wanted to point out is in the corner of this, you see this kind of funky look right here. And what that means is it's saying, hey, you're starting at 0, but we're going to go ahead and skip really far over. So you may notice it goes from 0 to 46, and then after that on the x-axis, it counts by 4s. 46 to 50, 50 to 54, 54 to 58, so on and so forth. That's what that little kind of zigzag means, is it saying, hey, there's the 0 point, the starting point, but we're going to start all the way over here at 46. The same thing's happening on the y-axis. They've got that kind of 0 and then that little mark to show that, hey, the first number we're going to have on our graph is 240, and then we're going to count by 10s after that. Notice each line is labeled. So that's all that little mark means. So for those of you who are unsure, that's what it's talking about. So let's take a look at this example. So in this example, it says the scatter plot shows the amount x, so again x, in grams, right, of sugar. So again, that's back to that label I was just talking about. X-axis is your grams of sugar. And then the numbers y of calories, all right? So that's, again, the y-axis, and it stands for the number of calories. And then it tells us that there are 10 smoothies. So there should be 10 dots on here, and if we went through and counted them, we'd see that there's 10. A couple of them are kind of close together, but they are separate dots. Now they've asked us, 5 specific questions here. And so what we want to do is we want to go through each question individually, and we want to identify the key piece of information they gave us and then use that to figure out which smoothie they're talking about and then answer their question. So when I look at the first question, it says how many calories are in the smoothie that contains 56 grams of sugar? All right, so it wants to know which smoothie has 56 grams of sugar. So in order to figure that out, I need to come over to my x-axis, because that's what deals with grams of sugar, and I need to get to 56. Well, 56 isn't labeled, but I know that it's going to be directly in the middle between 54 and 58. So I'm going to come here. And then I need to move up until I hit the dot, which represents that smoothie. So as I start to move up here, I finally hit that dot right here. And so there is the dot. And so now I need to figure out, right, well, how many calories are in that smoothie, because that's what they asked me. Well, if I go across here, all the way across, I see that it is even with 270 calories on the y-axis. And that would be my answer. I would simply say 270 calories. Pretty simple, right? Well, I'd encourage you to try that second question on your own because it's very similar to the first, then check your answer with mine. So again, the question says, how many calories are in the smoothie that contains 51 grams of sugar? All right, well, in order to figure that out, I need to come, again, because it is talking about grams of sugar, which is an X value, so it's going to be on the X axis. I need to come over here and go to where I see 51. Well, I don't really have 51 labeled. I have 50 and 54. In between, in the middle, would be 52, so I know 51 is going to be really close to 50, but not quite on it. So I'm just going to start really close, and I'm going to draw up until I hit a dot. And there I go, I hit it right there. So at 51 grams of sugar, I see that when I moved left to what it's even with in calories, that it has 260 calories. All right. Well, the third question is kind of a reverse of the first one. Rather than giving us the grams of sugar, they've given us the calories. So when I look at this, it says how many grams of sugar, so that's what they want me to find, are in the smoothie that contains 320 calories. Well, remember, 320 calories is a y-axis value. So I need to come all over to my y-axis and move until I hit 320, which happens to fall directly on a line. So then I'm going to draw, or in my head, go all the way over until I hit a dot that's on that line. So there we go, I've hit it. So that's the dot, that's the smoothie. So then I need to draw down or go down with my eyes till I see how many grams of sugar it has. And I see that it has 70 grams of sugar. Very good. Well, I'd encourage you to try this fourth question by yourself. It's very similar to the one we just did, and then check your answer with mine. So the fourth one says, how many grams of sugar are in the smoothie that contains 250 calories? And I'm going to move this up just a little bit here. There we go. So again, how many grams of sugar in the smoothie that contains 250 calories? So again, calories is dealing with the y-axis. So I'm going to come over here to my y-axis and I'm going to go to 250, just a little ways up. And then I'm going to draw my line until I hit my dot, my plotted point. So there it is. Now I need to go down, and I'm going to, or use either my eyes or draw down until I've hit where it is. Well, this one doesn't hit directly on a line, but it hits pretty much right in the middle between 50 and 54. So I think it would be a safe thing to say that this is at 52 grams of sugar. All right, and then the last question they've asked us is they've asked us now to take some of this information from this scatter plot and to make some extractions from it and to kind of learn what took place, what was happening with these smoothies. So the question asks, what tends to happen to the number of calories as the number of grams of sugar increases? So as I move right on the x-axis, the sugar grams become more. What's happening to the calories? Well, I noticed here when I move just a little bit, it goes up. When I move a little bit more, it goes a little higher up. When I move a little bit more, it goes a little bit higher up even. And when I move even a little bit more, it goes even higher. So what I'm noticing when I look at that is that when the grams of sugar increase, the calories also increase. So what I would say is something to the effect of the calories tend to increase as the grams of sugar increase. End of sentence. All right, well, if you have any additional questions about scatter plots, how to interpret them, how to figure out your data, any of that, please let me know. But otherwise, you should have what you need to continue on in the chapter.